people of Dominica, the government of Dominica is doing to ensure that the social security system in Dominica remains sustainable in the long term. So maybe it is just Dominica, or maybe not. So let's look at Antigua. In Antigua, the retirement age is currently 64, and it is moving towards 65. The contribution rate in Antigua is currently 15. It is going towards 16 in 2025. That's 2 years from now. And the minimum number of contributions required to qualify for a pension is also increasing. It has moved from 500 to 750. And Antigua is in a unique position. Closer to home, St. Vincent and the Grenadine, the retirement age is 63, moving towards 65. The minimum number of contribution is increasing also, moving from 650 to 750, in 2028. And I have been in discussion with the director of the Social Security system in St. Vincent, and they are already contemplating other changes. Barbados. The retirement age in Barbados is 67 years. Not 60, not 61, not 62, 67. The contribution rate, NIS proper, is 18.25% in Barbados. That's what the Bajans are paying for the social security system. Right? An additional 1.5% for unemployment benefit, and an additional 0.5% for severance benefit. So if you're a Bajan, you're paying 20.25% for your social security package. That's the reality in Barbados, and the Bajan are talking pension reform, and the Prime Minister was talking, that NIS needed to change, and Bajan needs to support the change. So in the OECS, for instance, Grenada is now the only country with a pensionable age of 60. Anguilla is 65. I believe they have always been 65. Antigua 62, Dominica 65, Montserrat 65, St. Kitts 62, St. Lucia. St. Lucia was 65 since in 2015. So during the COVID pandemic, when we were trying to assist persons with an unemployment benefit, and we were struggling to pay $5.8 million, St. Lucia battered the eye and paid in excess of $80 million, not US, sorry, EC, $80 million. Right? And why? Because they did what they had to do when they were supposed to do it, and the social security system in St. Lucia is on a strong footing. And it's a consequence of doing what you have to do when you have to do it and not delaying. I said at the beginning, if you are in your 20s and your 30s, and if we continue as a country and as a people to do nothing, you would not get a pension. And if you do get a pension, there will be days when you have to wait for it. You have to go back home. Right? The reality of the situation is that we are already in that position, because in 2021, in order to pay pensions and other benefits, we had to break term deposits. Right? When the month is coming to a close, when we come into the 19th, I will get a call from the deputy director, from the finance manager, one of them or both of them, right, saying, listen, we need to break some term deposits. We can't make it. And I say, do what you have to do. So in 2021, we break 8 term deposits, totaling $14.3 million to pay pensions. In 2022, we broke 6 term deposits, totaling $14.5 million to do the same. And in 2023, we broke 8-term deposits totaling $22.8 million. And 2023 is not quite finished yet. So, how do we put the Social Security system in Grenada on a sustainable path after having done nothing for essentially 40 years? There is no one prescription. It's a collection of prescriptions. Because when you go to the doctor and the doctor prescribes something for you and you did not take it and you delay forever, when you go back the next time, right, he tell you have to take this, but you also have to take this because other complication arose. And that is the situation NIS Grenada is in. So what do we absolutely need to do? Not what we are doing at discretion. What do we have to do to save our social security system? We must increase the pensionable age as a matter of national urgency. So the pensionable age, we have proposed to the government of Grenada to increase the pensionable age from 60 to 65 over the period 2024 to 2029. Of course, you have the option to take your pension early, always at 60, at any age you so desire, but there is a small adjustment if you take it before the required age. So increasing the pension age is something that we absolutely have to do to save NIS Grenada, to put it on a sustainable path. We must also increase the contribution rate because the monies that we've collected, you heard it from the Honorable Minister, and I also spoke to it, the monies that we are collecting now is not sufficient to cover expenditure on a month-to-month basis. We are breaking term deposits left, right, and center to cover our expenditure, and that is not sustainable. So in 2023, we increased the contribution rate by 1%, but that was principally for the introduction of an unemployment benefit program, which came into effect on the 1st of May. So we have proposed to the government that between 2024 and 2031, we increase the contribution rate from where it is now 12% to 16%. 0.5% increase every year, split equally between employee and employer. So the employee will have an increase of 0.25%, and the employer would see a marginal increase of 0.25%. So we move, but we move gradually. There are some other changes that we have also proposed. And these changes, as we have said, are changes that came from the 13th actuarial review. They were also present, some of them in the 12th review, they were present in the 11th review. So these changes did not come out of the sky. They were there, they were not implemented. And one of the other changes that we have proposed that is coming from the 13th review is to make the NIS pension a retirement pension and not an age pension. So if you retire before the pensionable age, and if you continue to work, and if you earn more than 60% of the ceiling, we would say you would have to hold to get the NIS pension. Right? So three things must happen. You must retire before the pensionable age, you must continue to work, and you must be earning more than 60% of the ceiling at the point in time. We're also proposing that we adjust the pension formula. So the current pension formula is 30% for the first 10 years and 1% thereafter, and we are proposing 25% for the first 10 years and 1% thereafter, just to even it out. Additionally, to increase the number of contributions required to qualify for a pension from 500 to 750 over a period of time with increments of 50. And you would have seen it in some of the other social security schemes in the region. And the introduction, as I've mentioned before, of a permanent unemployment benefit that was presented to stakeholders in 2022 with a contribution rate increase of 1% in 2023. And I just wish to share with you, our viewers, listeners, those of us in the room, an extract from a quote from the ECCB, not from the NIS, from the central bank, that social security systems are in need of reform and that failure to implement these reforms can result in financial instability of the social security system. And not just that, instability of the ECCU financial sector. And that is a quote from the ECCB. We've said consistently, we said it to the cabinet when we made the presentation to the cabinet, and we've said it around the country for the public consultation that we have had, and we will say it here, that as a people, we cannot continue to kick the ball down the road. Right? We cannot continue to procrastinate on this issue. And so we at the NIS, the board and the management, was delighted that finally our policymakers have listened and said that we are not going to continue to kick this to the next generation or the next government. We are going to deal with this issue to save and put the national insurance scheme on a sustainable path. I thank you.
Thank you very much. That was Mr. Dorset Cromwell, the Director of the National Insurance Scheme. He gave an in-depth review as to all the challenges faced by the National Insurance Scheme, as he put it, over the past 40 years. At this time, we're going to open the floor for questions from members of the media. They are joining us via the Zoom platform. As we get that indication from our team, we will invite the first media rep to pose their question. Do we have anyone at the moment? If not, I would just ask for a bit of clarity. As it stands now, Mr. Cromwell, 500 is the amount of contributions you need to have with the NIS to obtain a pension. I know of persons who claim that they've already made the 500. Sometimes you make your 500 and you're no longer employed. What would happen to these people when they attain that pensionable age, knowing that they would have made 500 contributions already? They're no longer employed, but at the time they attain the age, the contribution is 750. What happens to them?
Well, as it is now, as you pointed out, the contribution requirement is 500, right? Every year thereafter, it is going to increase by incrementally by 50, right? If at the time when you retire, the amount has increased and you're still at 500, you would not qualify for the pension, you would qualify for a grant. What the systems allow for, though, what the NIS allow for, even where you are not working, you can pay as a voluntary contributor. And we have a number of persons who are paying voluntarily just to ensure that a pension is not broken, right? But remember, we said that this is happening incrementally. So you're not going from 500 to 750 overnight. You are going from 500 to 750 over a period, I believe, of 8 years. Right? So it's an incremental process.
Thank you very much for that. At this time, we have Linda Straker, freelance journalist, and she would like to pose a question. Ms. Straker, go ahead.
Good morning, and thank you very much. I'm sorry if my dog is coming across, a stranger is passing. I listened to Mr. Cromwell very carefully, as well I listened to the minister and what he had to say. I observed that next sitting of Parliament, that's next week, the focus will be on the NIS. For a starting question, can the minister explain why the amendment to the NIS law regarding unemployment benefit is being approved, is on the document paper now for approval, but an order has already been done saying that it has gone into effect as of May 1st? Are we doing the order? Why was the order done first before the law was amended? Can the minister explain that to me, please?
Ms. Stricker, could you kindly just repeat the question for clarity so that the minister can answer you as best he can?
The sitting coming up next week, on the order paper, is an amendment to the NIS law regarding unemployment benefit. That will seek the approval of parliamentarians next week. However, an order was already passed in April, 14th of April, and gazetted that the NIS unemployment benefit is in effect as of May 1st. So my question is, why wasn't the law amended first instead of the order being approved?
All right, Linda, thank you for your question. I am not sure that we're speaking about the same thing here. The bill that is going to be contemplated at Parliament on Tuesday next would focus on pensionable age. The unemployment benefit has already been tabled, and that was already considered. So I believe you might have a little confusion there.
Ms. Stricker, do you have a follow-up for the minister or Mr. Cromwell?
Yes, I do have a follow-up.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, the minister, we will see how that works out in Parliament next week. Mr. Cromwell, in terms of the 750, you said it's going to increase by 50% increment. When will that, I don't know if you said it and I missed it, when will that start? We're going to effect the increase of by 50. And does it require an adjustment in the law?
Well, I'll answer the second question first, and thanks for the question. Yes, it will require an adjustment to the regulation. All NIS adjustments require adjustments either to the SRNO or by an act of Parliament. So it will require an adjustment to the regulations. The 50, so we're going from 500 to 750, and I believe, if my memory serves me right, I stand corrected that the first change would happen in 2024. All right, so that's the first change. That's when the first change is expected to happen. But I stand corrected, and I can always follow up if that is not quite accurate. So in 2024, we go to 550.
My final question for now, because I do believe there might be others who have questions. You mentioned about the NIS having to break a number of its term deposits. Can you share with us the number of term deposits that the NIS currently has? Which institution are these deposits in? Is it local, regional, or international? And what is the smallest amount and the largest amount in each of these term deposits?
We would try, but I would tell you that would be a difficult question. I'm not sure if we have that information before us, and I see both the deputy director and the finance manager who are in a better position to answer it shaking their heads. So we'll have to come back to you on that one. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Linda. Do we have another member of the media via the platform who wishes to pose a question? I was told we have someone from GBN. Can you please go ahead and pose your question?
Hi, good morning. Christina here from the GBN. Good morning, as I said to everyone. My question is directed to Mr. Cromwell, if you can answer. people have been expressing concern over the NIS's investment in different properties that they consider to be underutilized. Can you speak to that?
I got the question. I'm not too sure if I understand it. Can you just elaborate a little bit more?
For example, they're saying, okay, from the location where the NIS was before and moving to the other location where you're now presently, was it really necessary? They're speaking to other properties. I think there was some purchase of lands along one of the shorelines. They're thinking that the NIS is not making use of the properties that they purchase, adequately enough.
Okay, all right. Okay, so a couple things here. I mean, the building where we are, it was unnecessary for us to move for a couple of reasons, right? Organization grows, you have growth in staff, you have growth in your number of beneficiaries and so forth, so your staff expand, and you need, better and more space. But that property also has a significant investment component, because on the ground floor, essentially, you have a number of rental properties. And I can tell you, maybe the Deputy Director can elaborate, but we have estimated to recover the costs of the monies that we spend in a very short period of time, if we have not done so already, right? So for us, it was more of an investment. Right, and it has been over the years. This year, for instance, all of the properties on the ground floor have been leased out, and even in the annex, most of the properties in the annex are leased. And the building that we left to the front, the ground floor is occupied, the second floor is occupied, and we are in discussion. We have signed a lease for the first floor. Right? So it is not an empty building that is doing nothing, and the building that we are in now, the staff are in now, all of the ground floor is occupied and yielding a return on investment. Right? I would say to you, on the other properties that we have, the board and the management are making concerted effort to have these properties generate income, and we have proposals that are before the board. We have the Sandino project that we are looking at. The board are in discussion with the relevant experts to look at the Sandino project. And we have other properties. You would recall also that we had a number of properties up for sale. And we have actually gotten buyers for some of these properties, I believe at least 4, and a number of other properties. The other properties we are engaging in developmental prospects so that they do not sit there and earn nothing, right? So I think we have answered your question, not here, but we have answered your question with action before the question.
Thank you very much.
Do you have a follow-up?
Not at the moment. I'll come back a little later. Thanks.
One of the proposed items Mr. Cromwell, you mentioned, is that about the contribution rate to be increased. We do know when the previous announcement was made about the increase in contributions, there were a lot of talks. Most of it had to do with the present salaries and so. In coming up with the proposal as to how the increase will take place, was it hinged on the fact that there is a consultative process now on in terms of the increase in minimum wage and so that persons who have to pay this increase, when the time comes, it will be manageable?
Yeah, I think that is one of the consideration, because, and especially how it is designed, right? Because we are going from essentially 11%, right, to 16%. We're not quite, because the 1% was for the introduction of the unemployment benefit. And you would see if you study the actuarial reviews, right, that they actually considered all of the mitigating issues, right? Because when the actuarial reviews are done, there are consultation with employers, there are consultation with labor, and there are consultation with the general public. There are also a discussion with central statistics, right? So it is not a process in a vacuum. It is a process that takes everything into consideration, right? So and that is why the increase is so marginal, right, on an annual basis. So you have essentially an individual having an increase of 0.25%, as opposed to saying, okay, we are in 2023 and we're going from 12% to 16%, right? That is not what was done. It is a gradual increase, 0.25% every year for employees and 0.25% every year for employers until we get to 16%. Right, so that is the consideration. And the other consideration is to ensure that these same persons, right, those persons who have a certain salary, right, can, when they are sick, they can come to the NIS and get a benefit and get it on time. When they have a maternity allowance, they are sure they can get the maternity allowance. When the time reaches for their pension, they can get a pension. That is the other consideration. Because if you do not have in Grenada and in the OECS and the smaller countries, if you do not have a social security pension, you are going to live in poverty. And we see people, when we go around the countries and do these consultations, we meet people who came to us, right? One in St. John's, and a man cried, right? He said, listen, I regret that I did not pay my NIS. I regret, and I'm telling my son every day to do it, because now I'm 60-something and I still have to hustle. Right? I still have to go and cut bush somewhere. I still have to hustle to get $2 to do, to live. So that, to me, is the bigger consideration, right? That these same people can get a benefit. They can get a sickness. They can get a maternity if they're injured on the job, right? And it costs $300,000. The NIS is able to pay the $300,000. And when the time comes for their pension, they show. Right, the pot is on fire. They can put the pot on fire, the money in the bank on the 19th of the month religiously. We don't make joke with that.
Okay, and another bit of clarity for me. Another important pointer you mentioned in the presentation is to make it a retirement pension and not an age pension. The thought process going through this, and what sort of mechanism will be put in place, because to ensure that when I retire and I am receiving that pension, I am not collecting a salary from Mr. Telesford. What is the plan to ensure that materializes?
Okay. Well, the thinking behind it fundamentally is that you should not be better off in retirement than when you are working. So that is the fundamental thinking behind it, one, and also the state of the National Insurance Fund. Okay? But the simple process that we have is all employers are required to contribute. So if you are getting your NIS pension and your employer is still contributing for you, we would see, right? And we would see what your salary is, and we would be able to know that, listen, you retire before the normal pension age, right? And you are earning more than the ceiling, and therefore the system would tell us, listen, have a chat with you, right? Have a chat with Mr. Filbert. Okay.
So, which begs me to ask you this question as well. Now we have a lot of people with contracts, and it's different types of contracts. After they would have retired and so, how will you be able to manage that to ensure? Because based on what contract you have and so, sometimes you're the one entitled to pay. And if I say, well, okay, I'm retired now, I have my pension, and I'm doing this on the side to keep me occupied, there is no guarantee that I am going to come to you to pay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct, but two things. One, if you are self-employed, the regulation says that self-employment is mandatory. You have to pay. Okay? So if you're not paying, then you're violating the terms of the regulation. But more importantly, also we have field officers, right, who go out in the field and do investigation, right? And we hit places like the Market Square. We go to where the fishermen do their business, etc. So we are able, apart from what we are seeing on the system, to identify persons who should be paid and are not paying. Sorry. Right?
Okay, thank you. We have the reporter from GBN and also Linda Stricker. We're going to take GBN first, which would be followed by Linda Stricker. GBN? If not, Ms. Stricker, are you ready with your question?
Yes, and thanks again. My question is to Mr. Cromwell. From the NIS point of view, can you tell us whether or not, I think it started, that aggressive education about the status of NIS started somewhere back, I think either 2017 or 2018. But have you observed an increase in women filing for maternity claims? Because one of the balance of is that the bigger your population is, the more you have working adults and the more people can contribute. So for the past 2 or 3 years, has there been an increase of women filing for maternity claim, meaning that we have an increase in birth rate? And secondly, the buildings recently I've seen being advertised under the ownership of the NIS. Can you tell us what are the status of these buildings? Have any of the buildings been sold? Has anyone depreciated? I know we would have had a case where there was some material collapsing in one of the buildings, the one close to the NIS. What is the status of those buildings in terms of sale and value?
Okay, so on the question of the maternity benefit, no, you women are not doing any better than you used to do in the past, right? And we have said before, you know, go forth and, as the Bible said, go forth and multiply. So there has been no improvement though, right? But we anxiously await improvements, right? On the issue of the sale of the properties, we have sale agreements for 4 of the properties so far, right? I believe one up in Tebaid, Maran, also Granans, right? The property close to Umbrella, right? And Scott Street. So we have sale for 4 agreements, and we have gotten good value for money.
Ms. Stricker, that's it from you? GBN,
I do have another question, but I would submit them to Mr. Cromwell in writing.
Okay, thank you.
They require research.
Thank you very much for your contribution there. GBN, are you there? If GBN is no longer there, I would like to thank very much our panel during this first group. We were privileged to have the Honorable Telesford and I would like to thank very much our panel. We are privileged to have the Honorable Philip Telesford and the Director from the NIS, Mr. Dorset Cromwell. They're both here and gave a very good presentation as to what's happening with the NIS. But before we wrap, I would like to invite first the Minister to make his closing remarks before we ask Mr. Cromwell to do the same. Minister?
Thank you again. So I want to state that government is committed to supporting the NIS, to supporting the initiatives to have the changes made to secure the longevity of the institution for the benefit of future Grenadians. But I want to reiterate the statement that was made earlier. We could have hardworking and efficient staff, great operating systems and practices, a brilliant management, and a first-class board of directors. with an eye for detail. But if government fails to make legislative changes, the NIS will continue to deteriorate, and in a few short years will crumble. The NIS, government, and the people of Grenada are called upon to make some tough decisions now to preserve social security, a pension for the working class, and for future generations of Grenadians. If we accept these changes, we would be writing a legacy which our children, grandchildren, and generations to come will be proud of. Thank you very much.
Mr. Cromwell, your final remarks?
Yes.
Put on your
In 2019, the NIB engaged in extensive public consultation and got overwhelming support. And we were confident. We were confident that the changes would be made. So far, on the big consultations that we've had, we have had exceptional support, because we believe, and I believe, once you educate persons, they will make the right decision. And for the consultation that we've had so far, we have had exceptional support. As a people and as a country, we must protect the NIS. We must protect people's maternity benefit, people's sickness benefit, and more importantly, pensions, because if not, people are going to live in their retirement in poverty. So we are happy that we are no longer kicking the can down the road. And we call on everybody, all interested groups, members of the public, to stand with us and not kick the can any further down the road. Thank you.
Thank you very much, viewers. That was the Director of the National Insurance Scheme, Mr. Dorset Cromwell. Prior to that, you heard from the Honorable Phil Telesford. And before I say a special thank you to all those of you who are viewing, I also want to make mention of the support staff that came through to ensure that the Minister and the Director was comfortable in making the presentation. We say a special thanks to Mr. Philbert Lewis, the Chair of the National Insurance Board of Directors, Cindy and Sen Bernard, the Deputy Director at NIS, Mr. Max Gordon, the Finance Manager, and Lisa Douglas, the Public Relations Officer. We indeed got a lot of information this morning, a lot for us to ponder on, information for us to do our own individual research and reflection on, and with the hope that things will work in the interests of all of us who intend to retire at a time when we are certain that we will be receiving a pension at the end of the month so that we can continue to live comfortably. On behalf of the entire GIS production team that brought you this live broadcast of this press conference, I am Sherry Ann Noel, thanking you very much for viewing.